Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Leah from Hockenberry Holler. Let me tell you how I got my name. Um, I grew up in the mining camps of West Virginia, and my grandparents lived on a place called Dakota Hill, which was um, in the coal mining camps. And uh, we right below where Dakota Hill was, where my grandparents lived, was a place called Hockenberry Hollow, which my Uncle Woodrow lived at. And so when my brother and I decided to write our book, we decided to focus Hockenberry Hollow, which is right off of Highway 251 in um, West Virginia. And so if you go right by the railroad trestle, you will see that sign that says Hockenberry Hollow. It's a real live place. I can't guarantee that you can get to it easily. If you go up under railroad trestle, you'll see bits and pieces of old mining equipment and houses with chickens running all over the place and goats. A fabulous place to have lived and grown up. Hello, Val. Hello, Granny. I hope I can stay on here as long as I need to. My battery is running low for some reason. My laptop is not doing as well as it should have. But anyhow, to start off, because we're here doing a charity for Valerie Reese. Valerie's Valerie Reese is doing a fundraising project to do backpacks for children in need that have is it the food program, Val, that you do where you pack the backpacks on Friday and well, let me see if I know how to do that, Val. That you pack these backpacks and they provide food for the weekends for those that are needing food, where they usually get the food through the food program. But anyhow, let me tell you what I'm offering for a $10 donation to Val's GoFundMe, and she will post that, I hope. Um, okay, hover over your name, there'll be three dots. Add moderator. There you go, Val. You and I are simpatico now. Anyhow, if you donate to Val's GoFundMe, which she will post, for a $10 donation, I am going to send you the book that my brother and I wrote called Dino, which is all about Dakota Hill and Hockenberry Hollow and our lives, or our parents' lives growing up in West Virginia. I know it kind of looks like a kid's book on the front, but it's really a family friendly book. It tells all about the ventures. And let me just read you one of the stories that comes from there. It's called Twice the Bugs. Bugs were not unusual. Growing up in the mountains or in a holler next to a river, you would imagine bugs to be part of life. They are. They were. They came to expect June bugs that always seemed to come in May, but were still called June bugs. And in July, they got black flies and mosquitoes and as thick as the fleas on a dog's back. And every great while in June, they would have the musical pleasures of cicadas. This was one of those great whiles, and so on this June morning, everyone on the hill woke up to the massive, high-pitched buzzing and chirping sound. It was cicada season, and this year of the 17th year brewed cicada that was bigger and louder. At times, when the sound softened just a bit, the word cicadas was kind of quiet and vaguely comforting white noise. At its worst, though, which was most of the time, its high decibel screech, like the sound of a train coming into the tipple, iron grounding against iron as wheels ground against the track. It was the ill pitched sound of an insect mating call that not only dares to speak its name but refuses to shut up. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Women's Station Channel. Gail. Granny. Pat and Chick, good to see you all. For younger Dakota children, they may have been random chirps some summers, but they have never anything like this before. You know, cicadas don't come every year. Dino was awake now and asking his mama about the sound. Mama said it was the bugs, hundreds of bugs in the woods singing out loud because they had been buried in the ground for so long. You know, cicadas bury themselves in the ground for years and years and years and then emerge. Now, Dino liked bugs, and this got his attention. So Dino asked why they just stayed in the ground and what they do when they come out. And Dino's mama told him that bugs take years to be born, and when they come out, they get rid of their old skeletons because they don't fit anymore and stick to them to trees and anything else they could stick to. I have to admit that still in my life, when the cicadas come, I enjoy wearing a little cicada pin on my shirt. My grandkids think that that is the best thing in the world. Hey, Don, I'm talking about Dakota and Huckleberry Hollow down near Reeseville. This is territory. The bugs are so happy they got rid of those old clothes and skeletons. They sing because they are happy. This was just too much for Dino just to hear about. So, gathering his buddies and telling them about skeletons in the woods, they tucked their pant legs in their brogans or boots and headed down to the woods behind Aunt Alice's house. The sound kept getting louder, almost so loud they could barely hear each other, and they headed in the edge of the woods and were just about attacked by swarms of these bugs, chirping and crying. To the boys, it did not sound like these bugs were singing because they were happy. They were hardly even in the woods, and the boys had the bugs in their hair and hanging out their clothes just a little further in the woods. And sure enough, just like Dino's mama had said, there on the hickory tree were little bug skeletons, further down another tree and another. All those trees were creepy little bug skeletons clinging to them. Okay, who has ever collected a cicada skin, a katydid skin? Raise your hand. If you haven't, you need to put it on your bucket list because collecting cicada skins, skeletons are just like awesome. It's awesome. It's something you need to pass to your children and your grandchildren. All those trees with those creepy little bug skeletons clinging to them like out something out of a ghost story. They were a pale, translucent type of yellowish, crunchy shell that looked like a skeleton to the boys. Each one looked just about like the bugs were all over their clothes and their hair, but without any insides in them. Fascinated, they began plucking the skeletons off the tree, sticking them to their clothes, stuffing them in their pockets, and deciding they needed to start a collection with as many skeletons as they could gather. My boys used to do that because I taught them how. Dino had been gone so much of the day on his adventure. Getting home right after supper, he proudly showed his family the day's haul of handfuls of cicada shells. He held up some like a toy soldier and stuck one on his youngest sister Annabeth's dress, which she flicked off, and darn if it didn't land in a bowl of peas. Daddy had to fish it out with a spoon, which prompted Dino's mama to ban the army of skeletons to the outside. Well, Dino did go outside, but the thought of leaving the day's work out on the porch he could bear, and he quickly stuffed the skeletons in his pockets and thought he would go back to his room. Dino thought he would go around to the front door because he knew his mama would still be in the kitchen by the back door. Seemed like every time you would come in, he would get a "what is that behind your back" or pat down to see what living or non living creature Donna was bringing into the house. It seemed like Dino could never enter the house without a twitching wiggle or yelping burlap bag without his mama asking what he brought home this time. He decided he would try to avoid this and not lose his prized collection of bug skeletons by going around to the front door. Now, just as a reminder, if you donate to Valerie's GoFundMe page for her backpack program. I will send you this book. $10. Donate $10. Hey there, Lilybug Lane, love you. If you donate $10, then I will send you this book. Lilybug, this might be a nice thing for you. I still have your note in my pocket. Well, I don't know what to say, Valerie. Let me try. Add moderator. Okay, it says you're a moderator. Yes, I'm reading from my book. $10 to Valerie's GoFundMe, and you get this book. Or if you let me know, I will make sure Valerie gets the money and you can get this book. $10. $10. Anyhow, Dino made it to his room, but it just so happened it was bath night and also the day when his clothes were changed out for the week. So while Mama was hollering for him to get in the tub and bringing along his dirty clothes, Dino had to quickly stuff the bug shells into another set of clothes and then head to the tub. It was a good thing he moved those bug skeletons because the first thing Mama did was check his pockets. With a raised eyebrow and finding nothing, she set to scrubbing him clean with a petrified hard loofah that felt like it had spikes on it and Grandma's lye soap, sure to clean him up really good. This was a Saturday night bath because they had just started going back to Mama's church in Reeseville every Sunday. And this meant they all had to get up the next morning, load up the car, and head to church with Dino wearing his freshest pair of overalls. Now, Dino's mama was smart enough to sit her crew on the back row of the church, for fidgeting and bathroom purposes. So they were all scrubbed and lined up with Dino at the very end of the pew. Father Timothy's lesson that day was about the widow who gave everything she had for Jesus. The most precious thing, her last coin, but Jesus would pay her twofold for what she had done. Now, Dino actually listened most times to Father Timothy, except when he just went past the 20-minute mark. I think that's all of us. There was just so much quiet and sitting still that a boy could do. After the lesson, while they sang a hymn and passed the collection, all Dina could think about was that woman giving away her most precious possessions, and Jesus repaying her back double because of it. And being Dino was the last person in the pew, it made Dino the last person with the collection plate, and he loaded the plate with all the precious coins others had given and thought some of Father Timothy's message. Dino set the offering plate on the table in the back, giving a big smile and a nod to to Father Timothy. When church was over, the men folks sort of stepped outside and sat on the wall to smoke a cigarette. And the women stood on the porch, swapping a couple recipes and talking about what was going on. And then all of a sudden, a familiar shriek echoed in the parish halls. You see, it was Myrtle Roberts' day to count the offering money, and there in the offering bowl with the coins was a mound of cicada skeletons, their eyeless stares looking up at her from every which way. Now, Dina's mamma, Miss Mary, felt this was a good time to load her crew in the car and head for home. And while the rest of the members ran into the church, while Miss Myrtle Roberts' husband grabbed a church fan on the way so he could fan and comfort his wife who had the vapors. And after about halfway home, Miss Mary turned and looked at Dino with one of those "there might be a switching in your near future" look, and she asked Dino why he had the cicada skeletons in the offering plate. And Dino tried to explain that this was a new prize collection. He might have accidentally forgotten they were in his pockets, was all he had, and they were all his most precious possessions. And he explained that Father Timothy said Jesus gave back double whatever you give. And to Dino, that meant that when he went out tomorrow, think of the hundreds of skeletons of cicadas Jesus would give to him. Miss Mary was quiet for a bit. For a cough she seemed to develop. It sort of sounded like a chuckle. And when they all piled out of the car and headed into the house for Sunday dinner, Dino's mama went to the cupboard and pulled out an old wash bucket. Reckon, Dino, if Jesus is going to give you hundreds of cicada skeletons, you'll need something to put them all in. And Dino smiled at his mama, and briefly she smiled back. Tomorrow is going to be a good day. Anyhow, like I said, $10 donated to Val's GoFundMe for the backpack program. And you can have a book like this all of your own. My brother and I let me tell you a story of Dino again. I've told this once, but I'll tell it again. My brother and I had gone back to Fairmont, West Virginia, where this book is set, in Marion County, West Virginia. And it was at my grandmother's funeral. She was 101. So we were super sad, but yeah, we were sad. Anyhow, we're sitting around with our cousins, and I had read online that Dino Suppleto had died. And he was a friend of my father's up on Dakota Hill. And so I said to my aunt, who was the same age, I said, "Did you know Dino Suppleto died?" And she said, "Dino Suppleto died." And then she proceeded to tell us a story about Dino Suppleto. And so we all sat there and told, like Dino Suppleto was spotted here and Dino Suppleto was spotted there and this about Dino Suppleto. And then um, the next day I went to my other aunt and I said, "Did you know Dino Suppleto died?" And she said, "Yes, I did know Dino Suppleto died." And then she proceeded to tell us another story about Dino Suppleto. And then one of the fellows that was at the funeral um, that grew up in the area, I said, "Mike, did you know Dino Suppleto died?" And he said, "Dino Suppleto died? Well, the last I saw him," and he proceeded to tell us the Dino Suppleto story. And so my brother and I said, "Is he like Elvis? Like, does everybody have a Dino Suppleto story or spotting?" And so we went to this restaurant. My brother and I went to this restaurant. And there was some random person there. We were waiting in line, and the name of the restaurant was called the Polka Dot. And if you Google that in Marion County, that's one of the hot spots. Fairmont, West Virginia is to go Polka Dot Lounge. And so I walked up to this guy, just being cheeky, and I said, "Do you know Dino Suppleto?" And he said, "No, I don't know Dino Suppleto, but I do know Todd Suppleto." And he proceeded to tell us a story about another Suppleto. So that place was really crowded, and we were all heading back home. So we ended up going to Bob Evans, and we were laughing. My son Jeremy was with me at that time. We're all laughing about Dino Suppleto. And this woman came up and she patted my arm and she said, "Oh, I knew Dino Suppleto. He was a great football player in high school." He said, "Had such a high step about him. He was such a nice boy." And so when we got back home, my brother, who lives in Kentucky, and I just started writing back all these Dino Suppleto stories back and forth. And then it became this book. And so one of our big missions with writing this book is to give back to others. We've given back to several elementary schools. We've given to some for Val in the past. And we've given some to the Appalachian um, Arts Association that helps kids who are trying in drama and writing and poetry and art in Appalachia. Um, so, like I said, if you want this book, $10 to Valerie's GoFundMe page, and I will send you an autographed copy by the author of this book. So let me read another story out of there.